The alien fleet glided through the silent expanse, each ship a monolithic shadow against the stars, sleek and ready for battle. Reports had come in of an intruding vessel, human, they said. It was a word that carried little weight to the seasoned commanders of this fleet. Humanity was a newcomer in the galaxy, one who hadn't yet encountered the Empire's military might. Today, the aliens would make sure they understood their place. The bridge of the lead ship was a flurry of activity. Tensions simmered among the crew, minds focused on the potential glory of seizing new technology and subduing another naive civilization. They were surrounded by screens and data feeds showing the approaching human ship, small against the vastness, but unmistakably there, floating with a calm that seemed almost defiant. The alien commanders prepared for an easy conquest. At the center of it all was the fleet commander, a towering figure known for decisive action and unrelenting strength. He reviewed the ship on his display, noting its design, a strange mix of pragmatism and resilience. Humans, it seemed, built ships not for show but for survival. Primitive, he muttered, more to himself than anyone else, dismissing its lack of elegance. To him, it looked like a tool, nothing more. But that would make it all the easier to dismantle. An aide leaned in, nervously suggesting, "Commander, might it be wise to open a line of communication first? Some say the humans can be unpredictable." "Predictable or not," the commander replied sharply, "they're outmatched. We don't negotiate with unknowns, we crush them and secure our borders." His voice left no room for further questioning, and the crew focused, ready to follow his order without hesitation. Their preparations came to an abrupt halt as a transmission alert flashed across the main display. A message sent from the human ship, requesting communication. The bridge fell silent, the crew exchanging uncertain glances. Unsolicited communication? From a lone vessel? This was unheard of. Was it a plea for mercy? A pathetic attempt to buy time? "Put it through," the commander growled, more curious than he'd admit. The human voice filled the bridge, clear, calm, and utterly unexpected. "This is Captain Aaron Stanton of the United Earth Defense Vessel Nova. Greetings. We acknowledge your presence and respect your claim in this sector. We seek only peaceful passage and extend this message as an offer of mutual respect." For a moment, silence filled the bridge. The alien crew was stunned, many glancing at one another with open disbelief. The human's words were simple but carried a strange weight, a conviction that the commander hadn't anticipated. They weren't pleas for mercy or hollow diplomacy. They were an offer, a bridge between unknowns. The commander sneered, though he felt a strange hesitation. "Human," he spoke into the communication line. "You are outnumbered, alone, and within our territory. You should know your place and surrender." Captain Stanton's voice didn't waver. "Commander, I understand the perception and the tactical advantage. We are prepared to defend ourselves if necessary, but I believe it's in both our interests to avoid conflict. We have no desire for hostilities, nor do we wish to impose upon your domain." There was an authority in Stanton's tone that unsettled the crew. The commander could see the discomfort on their faces, and for a fleeting moment, he felt it himself. This human wasn't begging or pleading, he was reasoning, calmly and rationally, as if he believed wholeheartedly in the value of peace. It was so unexpected. One of the junior officers on the bridge, still young enough to question things, murmured under his breath, "They're alone, but they're not afraid." The commander overheard, his eyes narrowing. Alone. Not afraid. Could there be more to these humans than they'd been led to believe? He looked again at the display of the human ship. Small, unassuming, yet carrying an aura of quiet resilience. This wasn't the response of a prey species. "We do not trust so easily," the commander replied coldly. "Why should we believe you?" There was a pause on the line, then Stanton's voice, steady as ever. "Trust is earned. I wouldn't expect otherwise. But know that humanity has learned the cost of needless conflict. We respect strength, Commander, but we also understand its purpose is to protect, not to destroy. That is why we approach you with respect, even though we are prepared to defend ourselves." The commander clenched his fists, his mind torn. He was a warrior, trained to conquer, to assert dominance. Yet here was a lone ship that didn't cower or threaten, it reasoned. The bridge was tense with anticipation. His crew awaited the command to attack, yet some of them, like him, couldn't shake the feeling that they were witnessing something entirely new. Finally, he spoke, his voice carefully controlled, laced with a mixture of challenge and intrigue. "Captain Stanton, your words are bold for someone in such a vulnerable position." "Perhaps," Stanton replied, a hint of warmth in his tone. "But vulnerability is only a weakness if we see it as one. I trust that, in time, our actions will prove our intentions more than our words. Humanity doesn't seek to expand by conquest. We simply wish to coexist." The commander found himself pausing, words caught in his throat. This human, he was different from anyone they'd faced before. He wasn't driven by fear, nor by aggression. He stood with a strange kind of strength, one that didn't stem from weapons but from an inner confidence, a deep-rooted respect for something beyond raw power. It was a strength the commander didn't fully understand but could recognize, perhaps, in a distant part of himself he'd long buried. The bridge remained silent as the crew waited, breaths held. The commander had the power to destroy the ship, to wipe it from existence with a single order. Yet something in him resisted. He could feel the gaze of his officers, the tension on the bridge mounting with each passing second. Was he to be the leader who simply attacked the unknown, or would he consider, if only briefly, this strange new approach? At last, with a voice low and measured, he responded, "Perhaps coexistence is something we will consider, Captain Stanton, if your actions continue to match your words." The human's response was quiet but firm. "That is all we could ask for, Commander. A chance to prove our intentions, as you would demand of any worthy ally." And with that, a strange calm settled over the bridge. The commander ended the transmission, leaving a lingering silence among his crew, many of whom had come expecting nothing less than a swift conquest. Instead, they found themselves grappling with an entirely new perspective, one where strength was not simply a measure of power but of understanding and restraint. The commander looked out at the stars, his gaze drifting to the small, steady outline of the human ship. He had entered this encounter expecting to assert dominance. But now, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. This wasn't simply a meeting of vessels. It was a meeting of ideas, of philosophies, of what it meant to be truly strong. And as the fleet held its position, an unspoken understanding began to form, one that would mark this encounter not with battle, but with a silent, mutual respect. The alien fleet remained at a steady halt, enveloping the human warship in a tense silence. To the alien commanders, it felt unnatural, a standoff with an enemy they had expected to either flee or fight. But here they were, locked in conversation with a captain whose every word seemed to carry purpose beyond survival or aggression. It was a purpose that puzzled the alien leaders, who had long seen strength as the sole virtue worthy of respect. In the vast, unbroken quiet of space, the next transmission came through, Stanton's voice as composed as before. "Commander, I understand your hesitation. It's not often one meets an unknown in such circumstances. But our mission is one of exploration, understanding, and, if possible, peaceful exchange. My crew and I come with the intent to build, not to conquer." The commander found himself unable to dismiss the words as mere posturing. Every syllable rang with a conviction that felt utterly foreign, and yet compelling. It was as if the human captain's intent to seek peace was every bit as resolute as the fleet's readiness for war. For the first time, the commander began to wonder if there could be a strength and restraint that he had never considered. "Captain Stanton," the commander replied slowly, measuring his words, "it's strange to us that one with the power to destroy would choose not to wield it." "That's the lesson we learn from our own history," Stanton replied. "Power alone doesn't build civilizations. It's in choosing when, and why, we exercise restraint that we found progress. We respect the strength of other species, even when we could overpower them. Perhaps, in time, you will come to see that restraint as the highest form of strength." A few of the alien officers exchanged looks, astonished by this alien idea. Power not as a tool of dominance, but as a choice, a means to achieve something beyond subjugation. For a species steeped in hierarchy and conquest, this was almost unthinkable. The commander paused, his mind racing. This human captain spoke with a level of respect and understanding that most warriors, even among his own kind, lacked. Could there truly be something beyond the instinct to control and expand? Stanton continued, "We've traveled vast distances, encountering many different civilizations. Some were hostile, others receptive, but in every encounter, we've learned that the potential for cooperation often outweighs the need for conflict. That's why I'm speaking to you now, Commander. We may be new to your region, but we've long respected the idea that every race brings something valuable. We believe in the possibility of alliances, even when others see only threats." The commander's expression was unreadable, his eyes fixed on the display. Stanton's words tugged at something deeply buried, a thought he had often pushed aside as weakness. For so long, his species had dismissed any notion of cooperation as beneath them. But here was a lone vessel that refused to waver, a captain who faced an entire fleet without fear or submission. "This restraint you speak of, Captain," the commander said, his voice softer, yet laced with skepticism. "It seems risky. To show mercy in the face of potential enemies. Doesn't that make you vulnerable?" Stanton's response was immediate. "In a way, yes. Vulnerability is a part of diplomacy. But we've found that real strength comes from facing that vulnerability with honesty and purpose. Our strength isn't just in our technology or our weapons, it's in our belief that peace is worth the risk." The alien bridge fell silent, as if even the machines understood the weight of Stanton's words. Among the crew, whispers of surprise echoed. They had come expecting a clash of firepower, yet here they were, engaged in something far more unsettling, an exchange of ideals. It was rare for any adversary to speak of peace so plainly, much less with a conviction that seemed unshakable. The junior officer, watching from his post, was unable to hide his fascination. Never had he imagined hearing a speech like this from a supposed lesser species. He found himself admiring the captain, wondering what kind of culture could produce such a unique perspective on power. And yet, in the midst of his uncertainty, the commander found himself feeling something he couldn't quite name. He had lived by the principle that only the strong survive, that control was the ultimate goal. But now, faced with Stanton's unwavering poise, he was beginning to question. Was there truly more to power than he had been taught? "Captain Stanton," he spoke, the words slow, almost reluctant. "Your ideals are intriguing, but ideals alone do not ensure survival." "True," Stanton agreed. "But neither does raw power. We've survived not only by strength but by recognizing the limits of that strength. By building bridges, we've gained allies, learned from others, grown stronger than we could have alone. Today, I am extending that same opportunity to you." The commander's gaze hardened, wrestling with an inner conflict. He could hear the subtle hum of his ship's engines, the feel of his people's anticipation around him, all waiting for his command. And yet Stanton's words echoed in his mind, lingering. His instincts told him to attack, to show these humans the price of challenging his authority. But for reasons he couldn't fully grasp, he found himself hesitating. There was a strength to this human, a purpose that transcended mere survival. It was something he had rarely encountered, and it was igniting a strange curiosity, a cautious hope. Another transmission from Stanton arrived, this time softer, more direct. "Commander, I cannot ask you to change your beliefs. All I can offer is the chance for understanding. If you allow us to pass, we will honor that respect in every future encounter. And perhaps, someday, we may find ourselves as allies." The alien commander stared at the communication console, the weight of Stanton's offer sinking in. In this moment, he knew he had a choice. He could continue with the aggression, reaffirm the supremacy of his fleet, and silence this bold human captain. Or he could consider something far more challenging, the possibility that this encounter could mark the beginning of something beyond conquest. Finally, he allowed himself to speak, his tone laced with both reluctance and intrigue. "Captain Stanton, your words are unusual. To treat potential enemies with respect rather than caution, to offer peace without assurance, these are dangerous choices. Stanton's response was as steady as ever, firm yet warm. Perhaps. But to us, they are necessary ones. There is risk, yes, but also the chance to forge something greater than any single civilization could achieve alone. We're willing to take that chance if it means building a better future. For both our species. The bridge held its breath, every crew member waiting for the commander's final decision. He could feel their anticipation, their need for his command, but he also sensed something more. Even his officers, hardened as they were, had been impacted by the human captain's conviction. It was as if Stanton's words had sown a seed, a faint idea that maybe strength could be something more than sheer force. With a measured exhale, he gave his answer. Captain Stanton, we will allow you passage. But understand, this is not a concession of weakness. We remain cautious of your species. That's all we could ask for, Stanton replied, a note of respect in his voice. Thank you, Commander. I hope, one day, this gesture will be remembered as the start of something far greater. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. The alien crew stood, processing what had just transpired. They had come expecting battle, a show of power, yet had left with something else, a sense that maybe, just maybe, there was another path forward. As the alien fleet began to reposition, giving way to the human ship, the commander watched its quiet departure, his thoughts heavy. He had made his decision, but the questions Stanton had stirred within him remained. Questions he knew he would grapple with for many nights to come. As the human warship drifted forward, flanked by the cautious alien fleet, Captain Stanton's voice came through once more, calm and resolute. Commander, as a gesture of our intent, I'd like to share insights into our ship's capabilities. This information isn't offered as a threat but as a mark of our transparency. We believe understanding is built on trust, and we're willing to show our hand to earn yours. The commander and his officers exchanged looks, caught off guard by the openness. It was an unexpected move, especially from a lone ship surrounded by an entire fleet. The concept of sharing tactical details, especially with potential adversaries, was unthinkable in their world. And yet here was a captain who seemed to believe such a gesture was not only sensible but essential. The commander leaned closer, skeptical yet intrigued. Captain, you risk much by revealing your defenses to a fleet that could turn against you in an instant. What makes you so certain this transparency is a strength, not a vulnerability? Stanton's reply was measured. Because we've learned that strength doesn't come from hiding our abilities but from using them wisely. Our systems are designed for both resilience and collaboration, enabling us to defend but also to connect with those we encounter. We do not seek isolation. We've thrived by sharing knowledge, adapting, and growing with allies rather than retreating behind walls. A stream of technical data flashed across the alien consoles. Data Stanton was openly transmitting, details on shield configurations, energy systems, even some weapon capacities. It was a rare and risky glimpse into the workings of a human vessel, one that seemed deceptively simple on the outside but was now revealing layers of sophistication beneath. The alien engineers pored over the information, astonished by the ingenuity of the designs. Commander, Stanton continued, his voice carrying an almost conversational warmth. Our shields are designed not just for defense but for flexibility, allowing us to adjust energy flows depending on the situation. Our weapon systems, while potent, are configured to prioritize precision over brute force. It's not about the raw power but about the control, the ability to act decisively without unnecessary destruction. For a moment, even the most seasoned alien officers found themselves drawn in, captivated by the complexity and purpose behind the human design. They had expected simplistic aggression, but instead, the human ship was a testament to calculated restraint. The commander, silently observing, began to realize that Stanton was not bluffing. This transparency wasn't a weakness, it was a demonstration of confidence, a signal that these humans held firm beliefs in their approach to conflict and diplomacy alike. The commander spoke, a note of respect creeping into his tone despite himself. I see that you have put much thought into balancing strength with restraint. In our experience, few species have developed such a refined approach. Most prioritize dominance or survival at any cost. Stanton's response was unyielding. True. But in our history, we learned that unbridled power often leads to ruin, even for the victor. Humanity has faced its own challenges, internal and external, and we emerged understanding that real strength lies in knowing when to exercise restraint. We've applied this principle to every aspect of our technology, including our warships. The commander absorbed Stanton's words, struggling to reconcile them with his own deeply held beliefs. To him, strength had always been about superiority, about making one's will known through dominance. And yet, here was a captain who not only spoke of restraint, but had built his entire vessel on the premise. It was as if the ship itself embodied the very philosophy Stanton espoused. What you describe, the commander said slowly, is an approach that many would see as a handicap. You limit yourselves, believing that peace can be preserved through vulnerability. Stanton's tone didn't waver. We don't see it as a limitation but as a refinement. Power is only meaningful when wielded with purpose, not with recklessness. Our technology isn't about maximum force, it's about controlled potential. We've found that precision and purpose are often more effective than raw might. And we're willing to stand by this approach, even at the risk of being misunderstood. The bridge crew murmured in low voices, processing this radical idea. In their culture, power equaled survival, with every action calibrated to maximize advantage. Yet Stanton's words held a strange appeal, an idealism that felt both alien and magnetic. The junior officer, who had been silently listening, couldn't contain his admiration. Commander, these humans, they have crafted power as if it were an art, not a weapon. They respect it, shape it with intention. The commander grunted, trying to mask his own dawning respect. But he couldn't deny the truth of his officer's words. Stanton was redefining everything they understood about power and control, not through arrogance but with a calm certainty that was disarming. With a hint of grudging admiration, the commander addressed Stanton again. Captain, I find myself questioning the ways of my own people in light of your approach. To prioritize respect and control over dominance, it is a concept that few would dare to adopt. Stanton's reply was unwavering. Commander, true progress isn't found in crushing others but in rising together. We learned this the hard way. Humanity doesn't claim to be perfect, but we do understand the cost of unnecessary conflict. Every time we encounter a new species, we try to honor that lesson. It's what brought us here today, willing to stand before your fleet, unyielding but open. The words hung heavy on the bridge, a moment of quiet contemplation settling over the crew. They had come prepared to eliminate a threat, yet they now found themselves engaged in something far deeper, a dialogue that was beginning to reshape their understanding of power, honor, and purpose. One of the senior officers turned to the commander, an unspoken question in his eyes. This human, this Captain Stanton, was challenging the very foundation of their beliefs, not by force but by example. There was no threat, no demand, only the promise of respect and the offer of mutual growth. The commander took a measured breath, letting Stanton's words sink in. He could see that his crew was affected, perhaps more than they realized. This captain was offering something intangible, yet invaluable, a chance to expand their understanding beyond the rigid definitions of conquest and victory. Captain Stanton, he said at last, his voice softer, almost contemplative. You are unlike any adversary we've encountered. Your ship, your philosophy, it is thought-provoking. Stanton replied with a quiet dignity. That is all we hoped for, Commander. We came to show that humanity values growth over dominance, and respect over control. Our power, however significant, is only as meaningful as the purpose behind it. We believe that there's more to strength than force and more to alliances than convenience. The commander let out a slow exhale, feeling the weight of a new perspective settling on his shoulders. This human, against all odds, had managed to reveal a path he had never considered, a path that valued intention over sheer power, that saw strength not as a weapon but as a responsibility. Finally, the commander spoke, his voice steady, tinged with respect he could no longer deny. Captain Stanton, I understand now that strength can indeed come from purpose. Perhaps this encounter was meant to challenge us, to open our eyes to possibilities we've overlooked. Your ship may pass. And I give my word, you will face no hostilities from us. Stanton's response was heartfelt. Thank you, Commander. I trust that this will be the beginning of a new understanding, one that honors both our paths. The transmission ended, and silence filled the bridge. The crew looked to the commander, awaiting his reaction, but he merely watched as the human warship drifted forward, unthreatened, its message of peace reverberating long after it had passed. In that moment, the commander knew that this was no ordinary encounter. It was a moment that would linger in memory, a moment where two vastly different species, born of different worlds, found a common ground, not through conflict, but through respect. And in that quiet, unspoken understanding, the commander realized that his view of power, and perhaps even his purpose, had been irrevocably changed. As the human ship continued forward, leaving a trail of silence in its wake, the alien commander found himself contemplating what had just transpired. He'd come face to face with a concept that was foreign yet resonant: power used as a tool for peace, not domination. The very idea challenged every doctrine he'd followed, and the alien officers around him seemed equally struck, whispering among themselves in hushed tones. In the moments that followed, the commander ordered his fleet to maintain a respectful distance, a sign of acknowledgement he had never granted any other species. Observing the human vessel in motion, he began to sense that this encounter might become more than just an isolated event. He had expected battle, yet this human captain had chosen words over weapons, bridging a gap that neither force nor intimidation could cross. The transmission resumed, and Stanton's voice was as calm and unwavering as ever. Commander, I want to thank you for granting us safe passage. Humanity has long understood that survival is about more than just strength. It's about the relationships we build along the way. In time, I hope we might come to understand each other better, not as threats, but as allies. The commander considered these words, feeling an unfamiliar warmth in their sincerity. It was a warmth that stirred something within him, a long-buried yearning for more than just conquest and compliance. He had always viewed other species as resources or obstacles, their worth measured only by how they served the Empire's expansion. But this encounter had offered a new perspective, one where power could coexist with mutual respect. For a brief moment, he was silent, weighing his response carefully. Captain Stanton, he finally said, his voice softer, more contemplative. You have given me much to consider. I have known only one path in life, the path of supremacy. But you have shown me that strength may take forms I had not imagined. Perhaps, one day, we will find ourselves on the same side. Stanton's voice, filled with optimism, replied, Commander, that is the future we believe in. Humanity has encountered many civilizations over the centuries, each unique, each with something valuable to share. We've come to understand that real growth happens not through domination, but through cooperation. It's a hard-earned lesson, and it wasn't without mistakes, but it's one we hold close. The commander's officers exchanged glances, silently taking in their leader's words and the human captain's unexpected response. They could sense the shift happening before them, a transformation in understanding that might shape their future interactions with others. The alien fleet, long accustomed to enforcing its dominance, was now being asked to consider another way, a way that could lead to mutual benefit rather than endless conflict. With a subtle nod, the commander addressed his officers. Today, we have learned from these humans, a species we once thought of as lesser. Yet they have brought forth an idea that challenges our very core. If they can wield power with such precision and respect, perhaps we, too, might find strength in measured restraint. The junior officer, who had been observing with growing admiration, couldn't contain his thoughts any longer. Commander, these humans, they represent a path we never thought possible. To control strength with such discipline, to choose peace over easy victory, it's a lesson that may take us years to understand, but it's one that feels important. The commander nodded, acknowledging his officer's perspective. This encounter had revealed not just an unexpected strength in humanity, but a path of growth he had never considered. By engaging with others as equals, rather than subordinates or threats, they could expand in ways that transcended mere territory or resources. Stanton's voice interrupted his thoughts once more, but this time it carried a note of encouragement. Commander, if there's one thing I've learned, it's that every species has something to offer, some strength that complements others. Humanity has found its place not through imposing itself but by learning, adapting, and forming alliances. We would be honored to count you among those alliances if the time ever comes. The alien commander felt a deep respect in Stanton's words, a genuine invitation that carried no strings, no hidden motives. It was unlike any interaction he'd ever experienced, and in that moment, he found himself letting go of the rigid structures he'd once believed were unbreakable. He realized that this human captain, with his quiet confidence and unyielding respect, had demonstrated a form of strength more enduring than the most advanced weaponry. As the human ship faded into the distance, the commander's thoughts lingered on Stanton's offer, an offer that seemed to hold the promise of something greater than mere alliances. It was a promise of understanding, of collaboration, of a galaxy where species could coexist, bound not by force but by shared purpose. And in that quiet moment, the commander felt a profound sense of possibility. He turned to his officers, who awaited his next command with a mixture of curiosity and awe. "Mark this day in our records," he instructed, his voice solemn. "Let it serve as a reminder that strength is more than brute force. Today, we were shown that there is power in restraint, wisdom in diplomacy, and value in understanding. The humans have offered us a new perspective, one that I believe will shape our future." His words settled over the crew like a quiet revelation, the realization dawning that this encounter was not just a passing event but a turning point. The commander had taken a step beyond his own beliefs, challenging the foundations of their civilization's approach to power. And the officers, once brimming with eagerness for conflict, now found themselves respecting the idea of peace in a way they had never considered. As the fleet resumed its course, the commander felt a renewed sense of purpose, a purpose that extended beyond conquest. He knew that the path forward would not be easy, that old doctrines would resist change. But he also knew that he'd been given a rare gift, the chance to reshape not just his own understanding but potentially the very future of his people. And somewhere in the vastness of space, the human warship continued its journey, leaving behind a silent but profound mark. The commander, his crew, and perhaps even the entire alien fleet were forever changed, not by battle, but by the simple, unwavering conviction of a single human captain who believed in a future built on respect and unity. As the stars stretched out before them, the alien commander felt, for the first time, that they were not alone, not in the sense of mere existence but in a shared purpose, a shared vision that reached beyond the borders of his fleet, across the galaxy, to the countless civilizations waiting to be met not with fear, but with hope. And in that realization, he knew that this encounter, this unexpected offering of peace, would be the start of something greater than he had ever imagined.